All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the May 9th Water Sewer Utility Meeting, Utility Committee meeting. Present today are Lisa Steele from Tripp County Water User District, Councilman Brad Schramm sitting in for Councilman Chase Frank, Councilman Clent, Water Superintendent Mark Liebrecht, whichever one you go with, Public Works Director Troy Kruger, City Attorney Mr. Jensen, Finance Officer Chandra Phillips, and myself. Today we will be talking about several different issues, including the city's most recent hot topic, the winter city pool rates. So to start things off, I'm going to turn it over to you, Troy. I'm going to let you direct out of the chute, and let's get this baby rolling.
A lot to discuss today, so we'll get right at it. I'll start with so Councilman Schramm has a contract in his hand that Rural Water has a similar one with Lyman Jones. I'm going to let Lisa talk about that for just a second so everyone knows what we're, I did not print it out, but if you guys want to read it, Austin, if you want to read it after Brad's done.
Okay.
I have an extra one.
Sure.
Thank you.
Good morning. So Tripp County Water has actually utilized the census water reading system since 2004. Started in a couple small towns, and actually now we read the majority of our taps that way. We have a few that we read satellite, but the rest of them pretty much are read with the census system. So the agreement that we're talking about is West River and Lyman Jones also has a census system. So we did this tower share agreement because we did have a tower that was down last year, and we could read some of our meters off the West River Lyman Tower that's just on 183 south of Prussia. So we did this agreement actually a couple of years ago, but we got it done, and so during that time we were able to have very few of our customers that we could read between that agreement and our other towers. Actually, Troy and the City Winter is going towards the census system, and the census and corn meeting had talked to Jason Orrell, who's our operations manager, and I think between Troy and census and Jason, they've discovered that the new tower in Winter will read approximately 1,200 of our meters. So I think we've talked about the agreement. Pretty much the readings with West River Lyman Jones, it'll pull readings in. It'll only give us the readings that we need. And Paul, if you look in there, there's a specific thing that talks about confidentiality of West River Lyman Jones customers versus ours, which would be the same with the city. Tripp County Water would see the City of Winter's customers,
Sure.
be numbers and not names, et
Yep.
cetera.
Yep.
So, that's kind of the agreement in a nutshell. The agreement that's here is exactly the same one, same way it is with West River Lyman Jones. Attorney Engel is our attorney and just changed the names of the entities. So, obviously, we're open to questions. Tim's always available if you have any.
I'm gonna need to look at the agreement. The one that I've got here is a different one, so.
Oh,
You could have one.
Yeah, there's two different ones, two agreements.
Okay.
There's the longer one.
The service area boundaries.
Thank you. That way it's got the provision we were just talking about,
yeah,
so.
cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
We just installed our equipment and we discovered that census guys, Charles, actually brought it to our attention how many of the meters that they were seeing of Tripp County Rural Water. And I approached Tripp County Rural Water because I think it benefits us more than them. They actually have the equipment to put up another tower, but which I think you guys have kind of planned to do because you have kind of an area to the southwest that's not reading right, so they were going to use it, put up a tower in that area. Well, ironically, our tower reads that area quite well, so, I just thought, I approached those guys just with the thinking that, if we can share equipment, we only have one tower. So in the event that we would, a lightning strike or something like that, if we would lose our tower and we could read our meters off of their tower, that would benefit us greatly. We would not really have any downtime that way. And so that's where this is coming from. I think it benefits both parties and it's
Kind of a
Big deal for
backup plan.
everybody.
Yep.
So, we need the council's blessing to have the mayor sign and, all that good stuff. The second one that you have in front of you, that's one that I handed out to everybody. And that one kind of spells out,
I didn't get a second.
territories.
Service territory, yeah.
Oh, was it part of that one? Okay.
That's the one I've got. Service territories, yeah.
So, unlike our
Oh, sure.
electrical department where we have we have a map, the city's had a map and Rosebud Electric has a map, and we have a service territory and they have a service territory, and so we do not go into their territory, they do not come into our territory. We've never had a map with Tripp County Rural Water. So you've got a handout of Google Earth here, and it's got some red lines drawn around it. It does go outside the city limits in several areas, and the city calls those outlaw taps. And what we do in those cases is we charge the same rate that rural water charges, but because rural water, because it's not feasible for them to get to those places, or in most cases, we're closer and it's an easier connection. Our standard operating procedure there, I guess, is we call the rural water district and we make sure that they deny it, that they're going to deny service. And if they deny service, then we will help them out if we can. Jump in here anytime, Lisa. I mean, maybe, because this goes way further than me, and you'd have some history on it.
Yeah, and ultimately, the city has been here a long time. The district will be here 50 years in a couple of years. So I just think it's important that we come up with something. Obviously, over the last year, we know that we've had a couple of incidents that, will need to be addressed.
Yep.
And I know, so with our smaller towns, like in Bonesdale, for example, whatever the city of Bonesdale had that they served, our agreement says they handle those, anything then we would handle outside of that. I think Tim has in here the South Dakota codified law that the city can serve anybody within 3 miles of winter.
Correct.
Obviously, if you look at this, there are people that you guys serve, there's people that we serve. And I think that's where we want to just come up with this agreement of, this is our spot. If someone approaches Chandra and says, or approaches me and it's in the city, east of the Holiday House, for example, where we kind of talked about something, that would come from your guys' water. So I think that's where we just, eventually we'll need to sit down and kind of go through it. But this is a great start to show, and then Troy and I talked a little bit yesterday about the main line that comes in, from the wells. So, but, I just think it's good, kind of like Shandra has a map of the electricity. I think it's good that we just, get something.
Quick question for you, Lisa, and obviously I've just skimmed through this, so I see where we're heading with this, and I don't really have any problem with it at all. So the one question that I've got is, this basically by agreement takes and assigns, if you will, the rights to distribute water to certain customers within that 3-mile area outside city limits, depending upon where service has been done. What has been your experience in dealing with the issue? Let's assume that under that agreement, you continue to service any customers that are along such and such a road that's only a half a mile out of town. And let's assume that 5 years from now, the city ends up annexing that area in. Does that require us to come back then and re-agree on those areas?
Yes, and.
SDCL legislature is addressing it the last couple of years, right?
Yes, and Tim.
Okay, I missed that.
Tim actually brought that up, when we were working through this.
Okay.
Perfect example is development that's going on the south side of the golf course.
Correct.
Right,
Technically, and we understand, it kind of went back and forth. Where do I go? What do I do?
Yeah.
Long story short, they were approved. We'll be putting that in. But let's say the city decides 5 years from now to annex that in.
right.
And that has all been our development, and I think at that point, that's where I think we need to sit down and come up with those terms, because Tim said technically if that happened, the city would have to reimburse the district.
Correct.
Correct.
It's your investment.
Yeah.
There would
Right.
be a negotiation for the
And the
infrastructure.
other thing is technically that would be our water providing those customers.
Mhm.
If the city annexed it in, and that's where I think in this agreement, if we agree with what we need to do with those customers, or in that case, just like out here across from our office, if the city would plan to annex that big area
Right.
into the city, I think that's where we need to come up with specifics,
Okay.
Yeah.
so.
That's kind of what I assumed we would say, but I just wanted to make sure we weren't missing something. Thank you. Yeah.
In clause 2,
Paragraph 3 on this kind of addresses that though, where it talks about if it's already there before it's annexed, then it stays the same.
Continue to serve the respective customers.
Yep, so,
Yeah.
so in the case of Barry Grossenberg's development, 5 years from now, we annex it, it still belongs to Trip County Water Use.
Unless and until we come to some agreement, otherwise
Unless we agree to
this would
purchase
continue
it from
that.
them.
two of the areas that the legislature was addressing were Watertown and Brookings specifically. They had a lot of problems. Those two communities were growing so rapidly into service areas that were done by water user districts, and the cities were annexing them in, and at that time, there was no compensation to the water user districts for what they'd invested, and that was wrong.
But this current agreement, this agreement protects the water user
Unless there's a,
district.
it
Oh, yeah.
does.
Unless we say we want to compensate them, otherwise they keep the service.
That is correct.
Okay,
Correct.
So they're protected
Yeah.
with this agreement.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Once you said that, Brad, and I was again reading through this.
Yep, yeah, first time we've seen it.
It
yeah.
covers it, and I presumed that the parties are going to try to sit down and come up with an agreement. But if we assume that we don't reach agreement, that provision there is gonna say then we just continue on.
They're still
It was an
protected.
area that they've been serving, they'll continue to
Yep,
serve it.
their investment will still get
Correct,
taken
yeah.
care of, yep.
The other thing is, the water we provide, obviously, the city has to do their testing. We have to do the testing for our
Right.
water. So, again, when you're talking about who we serve and who the city serves,
Mhm.
that would be something that we would discuss also.
Absolutely, yep.
Clause 2 of this agreement, it indicates the city would further waive any and all rights to elect to serve water supply to those outlaw taps within 3 years. We're forfeiting that right according to
No.
clause 2?
No,
Okay,
no. I think that, we kind of worked this up off of some of the stuff that we had.
Okay.
And that's where we wanted to give it to you, for you guys to review.
Mhm.
If you come up with any other ideas or questions, that's where we would sit down
Sure.
and,
sure.
agree to whatever terms we feel
Yep.
is best for both parties.
We need to get Tim Eagle.
REA says the same.
It's worded the same way.
Yep,
Gotcha.
it's very, very similar, and I don't know if council wants to know this, or maybe you already do, but as far as how outlaw taps go, If they come to the finance office to sign up for utilities, at that time, if there has not already been services serviced by the city of Winter, then we send them over to code enforcement. Code enforcement verifies with the water and sewer utility supervisor that, or electric supervisor at that point in time, is this in our territory? Is it something we can take on? And if it is something we can take on, and then they go to Lisa, and this hasn't been done for several years. We haven't had an outlaw tap since Russ was here. And so it's been quite a while since we've done that.
They're just
That code
administratively
enforcement
helping
officer,
the
they
office
have to
here.
sign up for tapping fees, all of that, and then we get verification, written verification
Making sure
from rural water that
that
they
T's
don't
get
want it,
crossed and
and
the I's get
council,
dotted.
full council has to approve the outlaw tap.
Okay.
So, I mean, technically, our code enforcement doesn't have any jurisdiction outside of city limits, so they can only make those decisions when they fall within the limits of the city. And there's an example right now. Ag Terra is going to build a building, Elevate, excuse me. They're going to put up a building on the south side of Highway 4, straight across from their current facility. They are not in city limits. They're outside of city limits. So that's where this is stemming from. This map, the other map that I provided for you is, so what you're looking at there is you're looking at the homesteader, or not the homesteader, Smoke and Barrel. And then the property right to the east of that is Mathis property. And then the proposed building site is the dirt site that you're seeing there. And I've spoke with Jason about this, and I think I talked to you about this, Lisa, a little bit yesterday. Rural water doesn't come on the west side of 317th Avenue. And we serve people, in fact, we have a fire hydrant that sits in Elevate's lot right there on the corner of 44 and 317th Avenue. We have a 6-inch water main that runs right up to that. So, and then we also have utilities on the backside of Smoke and Barrels. We have sewer, electric, and water. We also have electricity that comes to all the way, well, we have a line that runs all the way across 44 coming from the south. So there's the gray area.
No, and there, I'm gonna just clarify one thing with Lisa here. The map with the red lines around the area, is that something that she did or we did, or?
I drew that up.
Okay, the reason I ask is because you show the property directly across the road from Elevate to still be in our territory, and I'm assuming that's not correct.
No, anything on the east side of 317th Avenue is served by Tripp County Rural Water.
Well, this is west side of 317th Avenue, but it's directly south across the highway from Elevate. See what I'm looking at?
We have customers there.
Right.
The city has customers on the.
There's Elevate right there.
west side
You go
of that.
across, that's
Because
just.
that's where the cabinet
Well,
builder is.
that's, this isn't a map, this is just. this is
Steve
just the
Higgins
fact
on
that
city or
we
rural?
serve this property right
It's
here.
on city.
And
So
we
I
serve-
can't
we serve
touch
that
this.
property right there.
Okay, so this does not establish the fact that we have the whole territory.
No, this is just,
Oh,
these are
okay.
just properties that we
Okay.
currently serve.
I misunderstood. I was thinking this territory had been defined here.
No, this is just, all this map indicates is that where we are currently serving customers. Now, those customers that you're looking at out here are outlaw taps. But because they're outside of city limits.
Right, right.
But the city has, in the case of Elevate, ran a 6-inch water main all the way to the intersection of 317th Avenue and Highway 44.
Oh, okay.
So without establishing a territory.
Sure.
We've already done that.
Correct.
So that's why I presented this
That's,
map to you.
that's where this agreement's gonna help
Yes.
solidify all of these
Yeah.
questions then.
Lisa's here today
Yep.
so that we can hopefully establish a territory.
A mutual
It
boundary.
needs to be on a map, I think. I think it needs to be on a map. And a lot of this, Lisa, is gonna come from the fact of you telling us, or your board telling us how far in you'd like to come, or how, and a lot of it is driven by cost. Is it effective for you to come here? Is it effective for you to come there? In the case of this instance, what I'm referring to here, we already have come out that far. So I think the city would like, we would like to take that customer there because we're already out there. We're pushing that way, but we definitely needed to find a boundary on how far we can go.
Right, and I think that's where we need to sit down
Right.
and say, this is what we have, this is where you are, and that's where we need to have more discussions.
Yep.
So Troy, if I might, are you trying to, and I don't know the right words, are you trying to establish a definite line that we can provide service, even if it's a quote outlaw tap, without getting permission from the rural water district? Is that what we're trying to do here?
Yes.
Okay.
So if somebody calls the city of Winter and says,
Yep.
hey, I'm gonna build a building, I need
We don't have to
water.
go to them to say you
I
need to
need
deny
water.
this.
I don't have to bother Tripp County, I don't,
Yep.
there's no guessing work, it's, yep, you're in our service territory, or no, you're not in our service.
And this red line is, for lack of a better word, is kind of like your opening proposal. We'd like to have this territory
Yes.
and have their blessing to have it.
This red line just indicates all the areas that we currently serve.
Sure, and I understand that, yeah.
So, you know, and like I said, we can use the property across from Tripp County Rural Water that we already spoke about. Is it feasible for Tripp County Rural Water to, you know, I don't know what kind of infrastructure you guys have over there. I don't know what size lines you have. If
Jason will get you a seat right beside me. Serious, come on. No,
I guess it's better than having us in the corner.
you can sit by Lisa.
But, you know, if say there was say somebody wanted to put up a business that was, you know, needed, you know, couple hundred gallons a minute or 1,000 gallons a minute of water, you know, we now have an 8-inch main run all the way out to the old motel, to the bridge out there, and then it's 6-inch even, you know, another half mile past that. We obviously have the capacity to do that. I don't know what you guys have out there. So for you guys to come in would be a pretty substantial cost. So I guess a lot of that is up to you guys, whether you want to incur that cost, because it's kind of a risk for you. You know, we don't know what's going to happen out there.
Right,
but-
and obviously, I mean, across from our office is a perfect example.
It is.
If someone in the future wants to develop that,
Right.
I mean, what Tripp County Water currently has for water accessible there may not provide that. I mean, if the city wants to annex that and I think that's why it's important that we start this discussion and figure out
Absolutely.
what is this is where you provide water, but technically, what's your cloud area that you would like to serve?
Just out of curiosity, because this kind of falls into that realm, is when Redco proposed the casino, did they approach Tripp County first?
They did.
And you guys denied it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Because then they came to the city, and I know that was about the time I was starting here. They came to the city, and they wanted the city to provide water for I think at the time it was a casino and a motel, and
It was a ridiculous amount.
yeah, somebody.
It was a
bought
huge
water for it.
8-inch pipe they wanted out there.
Eight
Yeah.
is bigger than that.
It was
The only way we could do it at the time, because we only had 4-inch main going out that way, was to upgrade our main to a minimum of an 8-inch.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what, we was gonna have to go just about back to, you know, where Don Sable's place is,
Yep,
Yep.
and tie back on there.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the city said at that time that they didn't want to incur that cost. We would've just had to went to the South County
Yeah.
and then brought an 8-inch main out there, but, so those are the kind of
So
circumstances
we
that
were
we're talking about.
both of us, in that scenario, was bought in the same shoes.
Correct.
But doesn't rural water have a policy that if it's outside of city limits, they have to apply?
This boundary, in my understanding, great question, but if we establish this boundary through ongoing conversations, then they wouldn't have to apply inside our border at that point. If we establish like that
the
corner,
red line.
The red
This
line.
is where we can do service without getting permission.
but anything
You
out
guys
that,
have the first right to refuse.
and anything out that, outside that goes back to what
Which would mean they would
Councilman
have to be willing to change their policy.
Which I don't think right now, I mean, according to the South Dakota codified law, that, I mean, if Austin wants to build a house within 3 miles of the city, he can come to the city.
Yep. And we can
That's
grant
the way
it.
the codified law states today.
Correct.
I mean, and it may be in Tripp County water territory, or it may be in the city territory. And that's where this gray area is, and that's where we need the clarification.
We can do this better.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So technically, Barry didn't have to get denied by rural water, is what you're saying?
No, so you guys talk, explain your,
Okay.
to everybody, explain your study process.
So, he called me and he wanted me, or the district, to just give him a letter of denial. Well, we can't just write someone a letter of denial, they have to go through the study process. So they had to fill out, he needed to fill out an application for his lots that he wanted, and we send that to our review, or to our engineer for review. And at that point, the engineer said, this is feasible for you to serve. Now, obviously, if it would have came back and said, you can't serve him, then we could have wrote a letter and said, unfortunately, we can't serve, you know.
So in a nutshell, what they have to do is they have to look at what their current infrastructure is. And then they have to decide what the cost associated to upgrade, or if they have to do any upgrading, they have to decide what that cost is that they're gonna have to occur to serve somebody. And then at that point, they decide whether it's in their best interest or not.
As does
So
the
in
city
this
of
case-
Winter.
But rural water's a little bit different. They charge the customer the cost of the pipe.
We charge all the customers
Now,
now.
but before, when you do a study at rural water and you need 3 miles of water line, the customer pays that.
Right.
And that's,
It's not out of the rural water pocket. That's what I'm getting at is,
And we're charging the citizens when we do it.
Yep.
Lot of communications. I think this is a good first step at us looking at something
yeah.
completely different, and I'm not opposed to it.
Start.
I think a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, you and I was talking, it's a good problem to have.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
For a small community,
We're growing,
Yeah.
we're not getting smaller at least.
But-
right.
the reason I wanted to, it does, it seems like this just popped up on a pretty regular basis. So if we have a map and we can agree, if both parties can agree on that, then a lot of these, we can just, nip them in the butt right away and say, nope, yes, that's in our area, or no, it's not in our area.
Yeah.
And that just clears up a lot of muddy. And there's absolutely no reason for us to be crossing each other's water lines, as far as I'm concerned. The way everything's set up right now, there's no reason for the city to go under or over one of your lines, or for you to do the same, vice versa. Everything's kind of set up right now the way it works, and if we define these areas, I think it works for everybody.
Yeah, I just think it should have been done a long time ago, because, when Jody came to my office and said, well, this technically over here. And I
Is your-
said, there's probably a lot of people that don't really understand that the city limits aren't just,
Right.
up at the city limit sign.
Yeah.
Obviously, there is a lot of people that don't understand that, but.
Yep.
So I think for everybody, citizens and, whether it's our customers or the city, I think it's a good thing to figure out.
Okay.
So am I hearing that we're gonna table this for further discussions?
This boundary clearly is just, these will be operational meetings between Troy, Lisa, Jason, and Mark to define that. And then, once they have some common ground and maybe a solution, it needs to go through Mr. Jensen and Mr. Tim Engel. And then it has to come to council and back to your board to make sure your board and this board, the city council board, all agree with whatever operationally has been come up with. The agreements, I think we move forward with on
Census one?
the census agreement. I think we take to full council on
to
Monday.
do the monitoring.
Yeah, to do the
Yeah,
sharing.
I totally am in agreement with that.
Yep.
Okay.
And the user agreement, we can get that one, we can do it Monday.
The equipment share agreement?
Yep.
Absolutely, yep.
And I don't know, Jason, we just kind of talked about, I just kind of give a little update about what we do with
Yeah.
West River Line and Jones, I talked about.
Because wouldn't it be terrible if we knew how much water somebody else used that wasn't on our system?
Well, and it won't do
Be
that.
devastating.
I know, but it's more kind of like a medical HIPAA.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
I was gonna say, it wouldn't be devastating, but I don't want it to happen.
So, so how that, just so everyone understands how that works, we're using the same equipment, but all we can do is, all we can see is their meters, all they can see is our meters.
No
They're,
readings.
they're coded differently, so
Coded
they
differently.
cannot open up, they can't open up any of the city, they can't look.
So you won't know it's my water meter.
You won't even get most of them.
Boy, I feel safe now.
No personal information, no, nothing, there's no.
They can't even see, they can't even pull it up on their computer, they can't even pull up one of our meters. All they, when it shows what the tower is seeing out there, and maybe you guys will know this, what does it look like with Lyman Jones, are they color
It'll pull
coded?
up like West River Lyman Jones and us, it pulls up basically what, I'm kind of simplifying it. It's coded trip water, and then the other
Oh,
one's
they're
just
actually-
West River Lyman Jones, it's just got. it's
Two different
coded
files.
And when it hits the tower, like one of ours, if ours hits your guys' tower, what it's gonna do is, in the process, go on computer stuff, nope, city winner, oh, there's trip groundings, shoot it over to them.
Hmm.
We don't even mess with West River Lyman Jones, and they don't mess with ours.
Yeah.
That's all set up, all on
Their census, yeah.
two census.
It's kind of like a radio tower for cell phones. I
Yeah.
can get a signal off it, but I can't I can't get access to your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta keep moving. You guys are welcome to stay if you want, but I got about 4 more long topics to cover and I only have half an hour left.
Do you have already written the City of Winter version of this equipment share agreement?
Yes,
Oh, you do?
isn't that,
Mine says
doesn't say
West River
City.
Lyman Jones.
oh,
Paul, I sent you an email with both of these agreements last week.
You did? Oh,
That's it, I know.
I can resend them.
yeah,
I might need that because I had been through all my emails.
Okay, I'll resend them.
I just printed them off that email for this meeting. So.
Okay, okay.
so the one that I gave you, or I gave you Brad?
That says nothing about City of Winter. It was more of a sample of what you have.
It's a sample, yeah. it's-
West River
What's your
Lyman
sense?
Jones.
Mine says city and
I only
Trip County.
printed out one copy of the user agreement.
Okay, but Austin, yours is the proper one, City Winter?
Yeah, I don't see anything about.
Is
yeah,
that
the
concerning
city
the
waives
boundaries?
Any all rights, yeah.
So why don't you guys
Service.
keep that one?
That's the
Equipment.
territory
I
agreement.
got them.
Yeah, that's territory,
That's
yeah.
the territory agreement.
He's
What he
looking
has
at
in his
different-
hands
Yeah, I
is the
switched
tower
here.
agreement.
The equipment share, yeah. But if you sent that to me, it's gotta be there somewhere. I thought I'd been through all my emails, but I'll find it.
But yeah, so the one that, so
Okay.
there was an original West River Lyman Jones, Trip
Okay.
County Water, but it was changed to the City Winter and Trip County Water.
Perfect, yeah.
so-
I'll just glance through that and we can get that on for Monday to get it approved by council.
And this is just, they just want to use our tower, we're not, that's it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't print out, it's like.
It's strictly a matter of,
long, so. I didn't waste the paper.
yep,
good.
strictly a matter of sharing that tower, so to speak, so
That's
that
all it is.
our information comes to us and their information goes to them.
So
Yep.
if their tower would go down, what would be our closest tower that they could
Well,
be? Okay.
Pull on the pipe, I got most of the city would.
That's
Mr. Mayor,
incredible.
Would you like me to email everyone those copies that I have?
For sure,
Council
yeah.
members?
Yeah, get it to these two committee members, but also get it to the rest of the council.
I got an agreement.
It doesn't need to go to me, it should go to Chase probably.
But you're gonna need it for full council.
Oh, for council, yeah.
Let's go ahead and get you reviewing that right away for typos.
Good enough.
But, and Paul, if you do go through it and have questions, then you can call.
Sure.
me too. So,
Sure.
or if you need something, let me know.
Yeah, this one here, I don't see any problem with, once I review the one that actually says City of Winter, but assuming it's identical to this otherwise. No problem.
So
No problem.
Monday, then do you want one of us to come? Do we need to come? Are you good with it?
If either one of you would like to be here, if there's any questions from the rest of council that we can't answer, I think we probably can answer most of the questions that would arise based on the questions they've asked today.
Yeah?
But,
Be a good
but
idea.
you're welcome to be here to answer that information.
Good idea.
Otherwise, I'll stumble through it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Lisa. Yes, ma'am. Jason, thanks for coming.
Yeah, I guess, I just been late.
Nope, I understand operationally. You
We're
gotta get
used
them
to
out.
it.
Next topic, Troy.
So the next thing I have, falls right in the category with that, and that's gonna be this proposal for,
Have a good one.
Yeah, you do.
Elevate for their building. And how do we get there and what do we do? I brought Jacob into the loop on this. We have utilities
Yeah.
behind the smoking barrels.
Thanks,
And-
Lisa.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. I've also talked to Kurt about this, and Kurt likes the idea of getting an easement from the south side of Smoking Barrels up to that lot. He'd like to run it all the way up to 317th Avenue, because he'd actually like to tie the electric in to that line on 317th Avenue, because that would eliminate a dead end on our
Create a
electrical
loop.
side. And then Mark and I have discussed it too. My question is, so, talking to Jacob about this, and Jacob suggested as long as you're gonna do the water, you might as well do the sewer. On the east side of Smoking Barrels, if you, Mathis has these lots listed, there's actually 3 lots there. He's got them listed with Shippey Realty, and we did look, I measured them out, they are exactly 1 acre parcels. So they do qualify for a septic tank. How do we charge Elevate for bringing the infrastructure to them, or,
First thing, and maybe, did you ever talk with Lisa about this Elevate thing?
yes,
Okay.
yep,
Okay, because I was gonna say, the first thing we need to do is make sure that they are okay with us
Yeah.
providing service here.
they are.
Okay. Once we get there, then we come on to your,
Actually, that's the reason I invited him here today, because we got to talking about this, and this is like the 3rd time that this subject's been come up in the last
Sure.
year, and so that, Mark and I created this map, and that's how this all came about in the last
Perfect.
month or so.
Yep.
Troy,
Yep.
if I remember correctly, when, back in the early 2000s, when we were courting Walmart, one of the features that we were gonna have to come up with was a pressurized sewer system to get it from Smoking Barrels up to the LTAP. Has that sewer system been done, or did we not do that at all?
No, it's been done, and it runs behind the Holiday Inn, and it goes on down to Jackson Street. So that sewer's already there.
Okay,
It already exists.
okay. So we didn't have to do that pressure
No, they
thing?
just, we didn't go across the road. I'm assuming that they were talking about going across the road.
Yes, they were gonna go up to where the Galaxy Inn is, the El Tapatio.
No, they went straight west.
Oh, okay. And that's, because when we were working on the Walmart deal, that seemed to be the only way that we were gonna get that done. And that was gonna be quite expensive to
Well,
have
this-
that pressurized line.
The lot that Elevate's proposing is actually at a higher elevation than the street there between,
Jackson Boulevard.
By the Holiday
Jackson
Inn?
Boulevard, so
Okay.
it will flow.
Okay,
We're good that way. They are going to start construction on that building in a couple weeks. And so they're already asking for electricity, and, obviously they want water, and then, so we have to decide.
that's gonna go in the corner where the staging area was for the construction before? Is that where that building was?
That lot,
Huh,
that lot.
yeah, okay, yep.
So how does that work? They've requested service from the city. They're not in city limits. So do they incur some of the cost? Does the city do it? Do we annex them in?
well, you start with the assumption that we're gonna bill them our cost, including materials and labor. And the labor based upon our resolution as far as the use of equipment and the use of our manpower. Start with that assumption. You get away from that only if there's some agreement between the city and them as far as, okay, the city will absorb X percent or some certain dollar amount, whatever, they pay the rest. But we start with the assumption that says it's their costs.
The other thing is, do we approach Mathis? And we're gonna be going right by his lots with all this stuff.
You have to have an easement.
No.
You don't.
No.
Okay.
I guess my next thing is, where this is a development, then you're talking about, does Mathis have to do the water, we do the sewer? Or-
Well, if it's going to be a development that's going to be annexed into the city under our ordinances, then you would have them providing water and sewer.
Does this fall into the category of, I'm assuming that these aren't residential lots, I don't.
Correct.
These are gonna be commercial lots.
Well, you assume so unless
They're
somebody
probably
does
still
something
ag
otherwise.
right now.
Yeah, when you got 1 acre lots there, and it's on the highway frontage, you're going to assume that these are commercial.
Won't Mathis have to agree to bringing them into the city limits, though? Or
Probably.
annexing? Yeah,
There's a way to annex, which we don't really need to go to today, but there's a way that you can annex as long as you have a certain percentage of the ownership of the properties to be brought in. You don't need 100% unanimous agreement
right.
necessarily.
So if we're gonna annex to get to Elevate, Elevate would obviously have to say yes. And then there'd only be just one other owner?
Probably.
Okay.
I mean, I'd have to see what we're looking at here on the map, but
So
assuming
that
that's all we
leads me-
brought in.
Leads me to my next question of, are we better off not annexing it, having an outlaw tap that we get paid for, and they pay for all of the infrastructure work, rather than bring it into the city where we have our share to pay and that kind of stuff? Sometimes we might be better off not bringing it into the city, because what is a steel building gonna add to the property tax revenue that we might get? That's,
Quite frankly, they might want to be outside the city of Winter because that avoids city sales tax when they're dealing with their customers and sales.
don't
right there.
disagree.
They might. And the other thing to remember, which goes back to the property there at Smoking Barrels, you've got that one portion
The
of
parking lot
of their parking lot is not in the city.
is,
Or, I'm sorry, that is in the city.
parking lot is, the
In the back.
building is not.
And the building is in the county. I don't think they're going to want to be annexed.
Right, I don't disagree.
So, let's circle back to getting them sewer and water. Do we have easement across Mathis's
We
lots?
do not.
No.
We just go to the backside of actually, I think we just go to that street. This is as far as we go.
Johnson Street,
Johnson, I'm sorry.
that's on the west side of Johnson Street.
That's where we go right now,
That's as far as our easement, any of our easements go.
right?
So we'd have to come all the way across Mathis's property. So I guess I present this, do you need to talk to them and present all this information in a legal matter? Is it,
I certainly can.
you want to write them a letter and let them know where the city stands?
Sure. Who do
I'll get you that name.
You can
and
get-
address.
you can get that
It's
to
the
me.
contractor from Summit I've been dealing with.
oh, from Summit? Okay, okay. Yep.
Okay, let's see.
But
Back
in this
to the
situation, I
easement.
mean,
Go ahead.
don't we want to somewhat word it that, obviously, we assume they incur the cost, but this is gonna be a big water customer too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we want to just approach them like, "Phew, it's gonna cost you $100,000. You know, I mean, because
And that's where I don't know.
I think that's why Troy brought it to the committee here to see.
Yeah.
You guys want to do something as a cost share.
Yeah, and
Obviously, the first initial response is be awesome if we didn't have to, but I think we need to just consider it from the get-go.
Right.
yeah. Speaking with the contractor for Summit, the building's going to be basically a storage building,
Yeah,
but there is going to be a bathroom and a kitchenette, like a break room, so they're gonna have a kitchenette, so they're gonna have, you know, a little bit of use. They are outside of the city limits, and they do fall in that category where they can put in a septic service.
They can,
They don't need to put in, city sewer.
Correct.
So they may choose not to do that.
Yeah. Their property on the north side of the highway there is already septic right there, is it not?
Are we selling them water across the road at Elevate?
But you're right, if we get too expensive, they're gonna, and that's where this whole thing came up with Lisa. If we get too expensive, they're gonna go to Rural Water and ask them, well, guy, can you just come across the road?
Yep.
There you go.
Obviously, they're in our service territory for electricity, but, so they would fall in, you know, but they're on, so, and their other building is on city water.
Yep.
So it just makes sense to get water there. And that's why this kind of all falls into the,
but for what you're telling me, I don't think it's worth it to us to spend $200,000 to get water service to them for a bathroom.
well, they're gonna have some fire needs too. And then that's the other thing that kind of falls into this, the whole realm of things is like I spoke about this before. Up there in their other lot, we have a fire hydrant. Now we're starting to have development along Highway 44 there. We probably need, because we have customers on city water going up that way, we probably need to put in a few more fire hydrants along Highway 44 there to protect those structures. We're developing, you know, we're growing a little bit up on Highway 44, and we probably need to put in the infrastructure to support that. So, a lot of things to, you know, I don't think I don't think the right thing to do is just do it as cheap as you can, just to get, so they can get water to their building. Because I think we are gonna see some growth up that way, and, we need to do it right.
Look ahead a little bit, yep.
What, how big a service are they asking for?
They weren't gonna have anything, they were not gonna do like a sprinkler system, it didn't sound like. So basically, I asked them if they were gonna do any kind of tank filling or anything like that. They didn't think so, but probably a 2-inch is the biggest. You know, I'm sure they're gonna wanna have some spigots and some orange down water, and, you know.
I know now they, you know,
Or
if you buy
trucks.
chemical there, they let you fill your semis, so they're gonna put the chemical in this big building, I would assume they're gonna let you fill on that side of the road now,
I would think so.
so.
And we have a 2-inch to that other building, right, that comes off our 6, goes right up to the side of their tanks, and so they have a 2-inch line there that they use to fill with.
What do we currently have running to
So,
2 guns, 2 barrels, or?
smoking barrels.
Smoking barrels.
We have is that an 8-inch main back there?
That's an 8-inch.
What is it?
We have an 8-inch main,
So,
I see it here.
an 8-inch water main.
8-inch. So why wouldn't we continue that out along the highway to 317th? Then,
Well, we have
then you
one
got
water
your
main.
future taken care of.
We have one water main that comes up behind the Holiday Inn and comes up behind Smoking Barrels. And then we have another 6-inch water main on the other side of 44 that goes all the way up to Elevate.
Oh, that's 6 inches on the other side?
Yeah. We actually have 2 water mains going on 44.
So that's actually an option too to bore.
so the cost is clearly defined in ordinance.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then that falls on council. If there's a request, we have to follow ordinance. We have to bill according to our resolution. And if there's an application, years ago when Runnings came in, they put in an application for concessions for economic development, and that fell with council. Council at that point would have final discussion. Right now, we have to follow the ordinance as it is stated, clearly. There's no discussion one way or the other until we see an application from them that council can address. As an operational service, you have to, according to ordinance, bill accordingly.
Yeah, without an agreement to some extent otherwise,
It-
we're already presumptively under our ordinance.
And at that point, we're assuming at this point, until we see that application, and then it would have to go into executive session for council to discuss that contract negotiation with them. Operationally, you can prepare to take whatever you need both ways, but it has to be at resolution.
So you want that application to be placed with code enforcement?
How did we do that when Runnings came in? Where
The
did that?
problem is we're talking outside city limits, so we don't have any authority outside the city limits.
Correct.
So our ordinance about developers actually does not fall under, pertaining to this.
But it's an outlaw, it would be an outlaw tap, correct?
Outlaw.
And an
And who
outlaw
pays
tap,
the cost?
The person wanting the water pays all the costs.
From our line
Right.
to the curb stop.
Right. And
So
if-
it is
if the
defined.
city council wants to encourage economic development.
You have
we
that
can-
option.
We can give them a concession of, okay, we'll take half of this off.
Once you see the
But that's-
application for
But
that.
that's after everything is already
Yeah.
done. If they've already decided to build a building, we don't need to give them a concession.
Troy, you said on the north side, back behind Elevate and going down there behind the old bowling alley, there's already a 6-inch line there?
In front of it.
In front,
That's in front, closer to the highway.
it's in the ditch.
Oh, okay. So that's even, so explain to me and to the council here why it wouldn't make more sense to come off of that 6-inch line and shoot it underneath the highway to this property on the corner.
You're trying to make a loop out there?
Yeah, eventually, yeah.
That's what I was assuming.
Okay,
Instead of a dead
that
end.
makes sense. I was waiting for him to tell me
Yeah.
that.
But that,
I was
but then
assuming.
you have the development of those 3 lots that Mathis has, and he has those 3 lots for sale, so why would you put, if we bore across, and at some point we would, probably.
Bore.
Because we want to loop that, so we
Right.
don't have 2 dead ends up there.
But that's why you're seeking,
But it's gonna be a
An
lot
easement.
cheaper to just come up from behind,
Oh, it is?
oh, yeah.
Okay. So I didn't know that. I assumed it'd be a lot cheaper just to come the short distance across on it.
And Mathis having free access to water, because the other guy's gonna pay to get that done, could sure let him give us the easement to go across his property.
Well, and
Quite
it might behoove them to talk to Mathis about having Mathis share in some of Elevate's costs that we're going to apply to them.
Good luck
we
with
need
that.
to be cautious of who we're talking about.
Well, I understand, but you know where I'm coming
Yeah.
from.
Well, it's
Without
properties and
using the names.
it's listed
Yeah.
under their name, so I mean, that's
Yeah.
why the conversation we're
But-
having, and when you go buy somebody with utilities like that, not probably so much with water, because, once we put the water main in, then they have to go to the main anyways. So they have to take it from the main to their facility. But when you're putting electric in, then it's a little bit different, because when you're doing that, at the time you do that, if you're gonna set a transformer, if you're gonna set, if Kurt has to build that line going, obviously, we wanna go all the
So,
way to.
Where is our current electric
then
behind
it's
smoke,
back there by
smoke and barrels? Okay.
So if he wants to loop that electrical service in, he's gonna build that line accordingly, going all the way to 317th Avenue.
Sure.
At that time, then it would make sense for the properties there that we're talking about to say, hey, we want service now, rather than later, and then having to pay the cost again.
Right, right.
So I think you're giving this information to them so they can act on it now if they want to, or they can say, no, just go on blast, we don't want it at this time. But Jake and I both agreed, I guess I'll leave me out of it, but Jake agreed that probably the best case scenario, the best thing for us to do there would be to extend that line up to up to the property from the backside of the smoking barrels and that, extend that line up, just because, you know, it just, you know, if you're gonna spend the money, you might as well. If we would not extend it up and we would bore across up there at Elevate, then you're looking at the same kind of scenario for those 3 lots that are for sale there. Then are you gonna come back and do three separate bores for them? Because then it becomes pretty expensive.
Sure.
Lot cheaper scenario to come up from the backside of smoking barrels with, you know,
With a big line.
with the big line and then
If-
just be done.
Someday, if that becomes a loop, there will become a bore anyway.
It would.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it'd be nicer to do the water line now and bore later, but if we ever loop that, that's gonna have to happen anyway.
So our ordinance spells out how we handle outlaw taps until there's an application. The first thing that we need to be looking at, according to how I'm reading this, we need to be looking at an easement.
What, please?
At an easement. That easement for the
Yep.
electrical back there, and that's a conversation with the 2 property owners, with Mr. Jensen.
But Elevate needs to be informed that this is all at their cost.
Yeah, as of
because
right
they're
now.
outlawed.
Well, I'm gonna call Summit. I'll call Summit this morning and I'll let them know that they need to put in an application for water service for an outlaw tap out at that facility. I'm assuming they're in our electric territory, so we're already bound to provide them electrical service.
Yep,
But water's a little different.
understand.
Yeah. Yep. And I know you visited with Jake already as far as the potential easement
Yep.
here, which would need to be done.
And Jake said, he said that they would do that either way. What they typically do is, your engineers will go out and shoot it and get all the particulars, kind of get that information in on paper and then send it to you and you'd look it over and
Yeah.
put your John Kent Hancock on it and then,
Take it to the property owners.
Yep.
but I have not told anybody to do anything yet.
Right.
So I just need the word, because they, like I said, they plan on starting construction in
2
a couple
weeks.
I think you start with your conversation with folks at Summit, and we can go from there. As far as the easement, I think you can turn Jake loose anytime, as soon as the folks from Summit and the property owners give us the official thumbs up to proceed, then we know we'll need that easement, and then we can start that discussion with the developer and the property owner.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm getting her done. We're doing the 2 blocks of Adams Street this year for our water project. I got price quotes on the equipment to do that. It looks like Mark's gonna be ordering from Core Main. And we're gonna probably get started on that here pretty soon because Stevie wants to get going on he's got that curb and gutter project for that street, so that'll be kicked off here pretty quick. Do you have anything?
Also coming through planning and zoning's meeting last week, there's a property owner getting ready to do a lot of stuff based on whenever you guys get that done over there.
Oh, yeah.
So,
He's gonna do like driveway work and
Drag-
sidewalk.
yeah.
You don't have anything? We discussed cell phones, and I've discussed cell phones in my other meetings. So we switched over to AT&T 6-8 months ago. The service is horrendous. I can't talk to anybody when I'm going 8 miles out of town. I was gonna bring it up in the last meeting, Jeremy Clay was here, he was so pissed off at me the other day, he was trying to talk to me, he finally had to call me on Kerry's phone so I could talk to him, but I don't know if it's the phones or the service.
It's a service.
It's a service.
It's a different service provider.
Yeah. So, I don't know what we do. It's kind of a hassle because I've got some equipment out there that we're using AT&T SIM cards in. So if we switch back over to Verizon, which it was a much better coverage service for us, did a lot better job. We have to switch that. The other thing that I've got Droid users, and Droid users don't like iPhones. So I've got a bunch of my supervisors that have their work phones forwarded to their personal phones so that they can talk on, so that's what they're using. I myself don't. I carry one phone. I can barely keep track of one phone. But I had thrown out the option in the other committee meeting, and I got the from the mayor. But if the city would reimburse us, if we all had personal phones and the city reimbursed us for that cost, and then everybody carried their own phone, and his argument to that was?
It's not an argument. We provide cell phones to our supervisors to use to put business contacts on these phones. We've had a case where we've rolled over appointed officials, supervisors, and all that information for the city of Winter left with their personal phone, and we were stuck operating blind. Other individuals were taking phone calls from those business people because they used their personal number. And we don't know, you don't know, if a person who's not authorized is having conversations or acting on behalf of the city of Winter without that authority. The city of Winter will provide you a work phone. I don't care if it's a Droid, I don't care if it's Apple. We'll get you whatever you're comfortable using. But when you leave the city of Winter, this phone is proprietary information with all the business contacts. We just lost a supervisor this spring. In theory, that phone that was used by the city of Winter would transfer to whoever we hired as the next supervisor, with every business contact in there, and every business that does business with the city of Winter knows that that's the phone number to call for the city of Winter to talk to the supervisor of any particular department. There is a loss of continuity when we allow the use of personal phones as business. I'm not opposed to Verizon, AT&T. I spelled that out clearly. Every department is different. You guys have different operational areas that have different needs, and I'm not opposed to that. And I really don't care if you're a Droid user or an iPhone user. When you come in, I want you to be able to function as productively as possible. Get whatever phone you need. They all cost the same. They just operate a little different, and users are more comfortable. But the idea that people are using their personal cell phones is crazy. We publish our work telephone numbers so people can get a hold of different supervisors, different departments. There has to be continuity. And furthermore, if you're using your personal cell phone for business, that opens up that cell phone to any kind of subpoenas. We actually can ask you to download all the contacts off of your phone, because we know that on your personal phone, there are business contacts there. Me personally, if I'm you, I don't want you near my phone as a government. I want my phone separate, and this is the City of Winters for business.
After the last conversation, I did reach out to FirstNet, and they're supposed to be giving me some information on some droids. The original reason for council's information that we went to all iPhones was it was supposed to help the city keep track of things a little better. We had some supervisors who left that we didn't necessarily get the cell phone back right away, so if it was all iPhone, I would have that capability to go in, retrieve the information off of it from that phone and shut it off then. The mayor said last week that he thinks that Droid has something like that as well that we'll be able to utilize. So I am getting information so that we can hopefully get you guys some Droid phones as well, from the city side. I don't have that information yet. Mike was gonna do some research for me, see if there was some better iPhones out there too, because it's my understanding maybe these iPhone 12s aren't working very well. Mine is all forwarded to a different number, but it's still city numbers, city information, and everything. But I am working on that information for you.
You guys, got any questions on that?
Personal preference, I guess, on the phones, but it sounds like we've got a service issue more than the phone. I mean, I'm not being a prick, but a free phone's a free phone, but service is an issue. And I brought that up when we switched. I said it ain't worth the savings if you don't have signal.
And I think the big pushing factor behind the switch was that the public safety wanted to utilize the first responders deal. And I think that
The FirstNet,
Verizon offers the same service.
they do. To explain FirstNet, in a crisis situation, what will happen with FirstNet is the cell phone provider will shut down all telephone numbers except for government numbers that are listed on the
So it doesn't
FirstNet.
get overrun.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's the only purpose of FirstNet.
Is that only through AT&T?
No, I think we believe that Verizon
But
may
our
have.
reason for switching was because of FirstNet?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But I don't know, I've had AT&T since they took over, whoever they took over.
Cell one.
And I haven't had the issues that evidently your people are having.
I have.
Especially anywhere near winter, you know.
Between 8 Mile Corner and the North Star, dead zones with AT&T the entire way.
Okay, and I'll grant you that, it's.
Verizon,
sometimes-
you can carry a
sometimes you have to
signal
be-
the entire way there.
But I would ask you, how many of our city employees are regularly traveling between 8 Mile Corner and North Star?
It's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know that lack of service
The thing that
for the
scares,
city of Winter's cell phone system would be an issue between AT&T and Verizon.
the thing that scares me the most is, right now, your SCADA system out at the wells operates off of a cell service, and I want that protected.
Do we have issues that go
I
in that
don't-
direction too?
I don't know that, but that's something I definitely want to protect.
No, there's really no issue down
Yeah.
there. The only issue I have Dakota Pump coming in today, is up at our blue tank.
At the Blue Tank, right in
I was
town.
up most of the night last night with that.
And we don't have service there?
Yeah, there's some radio problems.
Oh, I'll be darned.
But more than likely, that's not our cell phone
No,
provider.
probably not.
That's it.
Yeah.
That was the very first thing that we checked, was to make sure that this
Right, we went
provider
down to the
worked
wells.
down at the wells.
The
Because
west,
if it didn't, Public Works wasn't even gonna consider it.
Oh, I agree with that, yeah.
the Westfield
Does
that
work
worked,
down there.
but the Westfield that worked with AT&T, Verizon, we couldn't get the signal down there on the Westfield.
With either one, AT&T or Verizon, did you say?
Verizon, we could not get the signal on the Westfield in the buildings. They had to go stand on a hill, or we put a booster on our pickup,
Yeah.
cell phone booster, which helped.
Yep.
So we could go either way.
And that's at the water wells.
Right, on the west, right by South County there.
But you don't have that problem with AT&T?
No, we've had better luck down south with AT&T.
What's that?
We've had better luck down south with AT&T.
Okay.
I personally
tower
don't think it's
is up on
AT&T.
Rock
I think
Hill.
it's-
You think it's the
I think
phone?
it's the 12s, and I think that, I don't think they're new, I think they're refurbished.
And quite frankly, if a supervisor has preference for a droid, I have no problem with that.
I definitely don't like the idea of city employees using their personal phone for city business.
Agree.
I would never want to be in a position to reimburse a city employee for using their own phone for city business, because I think we just asking for trouble
We are.
with that.
Well, here's my argument to that.
Yep, and you don't have to call them arguments.
Debates, discussions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I had my own number, I had two phones. If you don't answer this one, they just call your other number.
Yeah,
I mean, we're a small town.
Yeah.
you know, everybody has your number. So whether I carry one phone or two phones, it just gives them one more number to call to try and get a hold of you when they want to get a hold of you. So in that instance, I think it's kind of unfair to the employee, when you're getting business calls on your private phone, that shouldn't be, you know, and it just comes with the territory, you know. If I worked at Runnings, nobody would, you know, when they get, in Runnings gave me a personal phone, or gave me a work phone, no one would ever call me on my personal phone. But the nature of the work that we're in, when, you know, because every call we get is an emergency, they're gonna be calling, you know, they're gonna try and, to the best of their ability, they're gonna try and get a hold of you. I mean, I have people stop at my house after, you know, 5 o'clock if they see me outside and ask me questions about stuff because it's an emergency and they gotta get a hold of you, you know, or it's,
Yep.
the world
Yep.
quits turning. So,
Yep.
it goes both ways. I totally get what the mayor's saying, and I don't want,
I also want you guys to be off when you're off. When it's time to take time off and get away and decompress, you guys need that time off. I don't have the
You know,
remedy.
and yeah, I agree, but the public don't know when Mark's on vacation. They're gonna call his phone,
yeah.
you know?
But if the business phone is turned off.
Oh, yeah,
Or you forward your business phone to the on-call phone, I don't know how we do that. That's an internal deal, but when these guys go on vacation, they need time away. I
I
mean,
agree. Yep.
it's a grind, and I don't want those calls coming. I can't block off your street.
Well, and I need to get in a better habit of, you know, when I am gone, I forward my phone to say Mark's phone or, you know, Kelly's phone or something. It's just, that's why I quit carrying a personal phone, because
Yeah, you
I was
never
getting
get it.
so many business calls on my personal phone that it was just, didn't make sense for me to have two, let alone, and then the other part is trying to keep track of two phones. So, we better wrap it up here, we're already 50 minutes past. So, the last thing I have is I'm gonna let your finance officer talk to you about.
First of all, we're gonna talk about this before it starts.
I already know the answer to it, but
Yeah. So I talked with council, Public Works Director Kruger, and Finance Officer Phillips this morning. There's a hot topic right now on Facebook, and it's of my opinion, after thinking about this, and I caught wind of this late yesterday afternoon and evening from different individuals, I don't do Facebook often, that there's an uproar over the rate increases at the City of Winter pool. After thinking long and hard on this, our rates are established by the city council. When we go through the budget process, we budget revenues. Appointed officials, supervisors make recommendations for revenue rates that council ultimately votes on to determine what revenues are acceptable for the City of Winter. Once that ordinance is passed, then the only way to change it is to change the ordinance or the resolution. Visited with Chandra about this morning. I think this is a decision that ultimately, and I've talked with Councilman Klent, this falls in council's duties to set the rate. Last year, when we set our rate, we based the rate off of old pricing, and that's what we budgeted off of. I don't know, Mr. Jensen, that is set in our ordinance, what our pool rates would be when we set our revenues, but it should have been.
It is not.
Yeah, and that's something we need to address going forward.
Okay.
But based on that, the rates at the city pool fall within whatever the recommendation is from the appropriate supervisors and appointed officials for council to decide the previous year during the budget season. Any adjustment to that ultimately has to be taken to committee, and council will make a recommendation to full council based on information from all parties, and they will decide the rates for the City of Winter. The pool has never been an enterprise that has to equal as expenses because we would have to charge way too much. It is a quality of life issue, as Councilman Schramm likes to address those topics in winter that we provide to our citizens. That being said, I'm going to now turn the floor over to Finance Officer Phillips.
So you are correct. When you set your revenues for the budget year for 2023, they were set based off of the previous year's wages, or not wages, excuse me, revenues. At that time, it was discussed that we need to up our rates at the pool because of the fact they have not gone up I spoke to 2 previous pool managers, hadn't gone up our pool passes, maybe Mark, you know too, 10 to 15 years at the very least. So I talked with Troy about this, and ultimately the decision was made. He didn't know what other city pools do for their charges. I deal with a lot of those city pools through my job. A lot of them are finance officers. So in our discussion, Troy said, go ahead and you find the rates that you think would be best. Talked with city attorney. We could not find any policy, resolution, ordinance that sets this. And so at that time, we discussed we could go ahead as the finance office and then put those rates through. What I did to come up with these rates, I looked at the quality of the local pools, I looked at what they charged, and I looked at the amount of people utilizing those pools. So I'm not going to talk ill of any other city and their pools because that's not my intention, but some pools that are much, much cheaper than City of Winter don't have the big round swirly slide, don't have the drop slide, don't have the splash pad that we have, the 0 level entry that we have. So that became a way that we looked into, should we be charging more because we have more amenities at our pool. The most like-sized pool and like-sized items, pool slides, different diving boards, was Platte, South Dakota. We have based a lot of things off of Platte, and Platte has based a lot of things off of us. When we built our pool, they kind of came in and built their pool similar to ours, and we actually work with Platte quite often on getting our lifeguards trained. We have had a lot of questions throughout the years. Why do we have a limit on how many people can go on the pass? We have large families in winter. We have a million different things. Maybe I have 4 different grandparents that babysit my kids, but yet I can only list 1 babysitter on a pool pass. There were a lot of things. And so in discussing with other pools, we tried to come up with different ways to help utilize what the City of Winter deals with for family situations. I'll be the first to admit that when it goes out on Facebook for an advertisement, it can be 100% confusing because you read this and you say, oh, there's no exceptions. There are exceptions to the rules. Unfortunately, there has to be. You may have families that are split homes. Kids live here half the year, kids live there half the year. Totally understand that. Couples, different so when I looked at our family passes in the history, almost always, I'd say, shouldn't say almost always, 60% of the passes were adding people onto them. So $135 was for 4 people minimum, then $20 per person after that. 60% were adding people. The other, maybe 30%, really only needed 2 people on that pass, so they were trying to come up with names in their family that could be the other 2 people. So that's why we came up with the couples pass. It does not mean that you're dating, married, whatever. It can be just your 2 kids that can be on that couples pass, which is cheaper than a family pass and more expensive than an individual pass. And then the family pass, we made it so that there are no limits on how many people. You just have to live in the same household. Babysitter pass was based on the fact that maybe 5 different people are helping babysit your kids, and as long as they're with your kids, no names are listed on that babysitter pass. So in my case, it would be the Chandra Phillips family babysitter pass. So anyone who came with my kids would be considered that babysitter and could get in for free with my kids that day. I did discuss this. I handed this chart sheet out to Troy on Friday. Catherine has had that discussion with me too. She felt comfortable with it. She'd seen other pools that have done that. So that's kind of how we came up with these prices. I know that Yankton was something that got brought up for they charge less than we do. I think everyone could be in agreement that Yankton has a lot more people to draw from that can help cover that cost. The pool will never break even. It's never my goal to make the pool break even. The goal is to not have to raise utility rates so much for those who don't use the pool to help support the pool, that those who use the pool can pay a little bit more. And so that was the goal behind this. Do I agree it should be set in resolution? Absolutely. I'm wholeheartedly in favor of that, and if that's how you guys would like to go, that's great. The daily pass was another concern people had. I found out after talking to these other pool managers, they weren't following that. It was my understanding, in other places that I've read, everyone has to pay it was $5 for 12 and under, 13 for, $6 for 13
Are you talking
and
about
over.
our local past managers or managers from
Our
other
local
towns? Okay.
past managers were not making everyone pay that came through the door. There are times that they would say, I'm not gonna swim, they would go in, then they'd get in the water, then the pool manager would have to go collect money from them after the fact. Didn't happen often, but it did happen. So I thought that was always the policy, that if you entered the pool, whether you were swimming or not, you had to pay.
Or a pass.
Totally understand the little 1-year-old that can't walk and has to sit on mom's lap. Mom is still there paying that. I didn't have an issue with that 1-year-old and under not having a $5 fee. But as far as adults, and another reason that is, we know from when we built the pool, there is a limit of how many people that can be in there. So if we're allowing someone in for free that could potentially take the place of somebody who wants to pay to be in there, then that could potentially hurt business too. Are we necessarily gonna hit that benchmark of how many people are allowed in our pool area? Likelihood is no, but it is still a possibility.
But you also gotta look at, it's part of the reason why the swimming pool turns into a babysitter, is because the parents that maybe can't afford it, drop their kid off because we're gonna charge them $6 to babysit their kid. If I come in fully clothed to watch my kid swim for a half hour, I have to pay $6. So a lot of parents drop them off. You know, I mean, and that's what happens.
Well, I think we're assuming a lot.
Well, I know that happens.
But I think the reality of it is just like Jody stated before, the pool is no different than the park or anything else. It's a quality of life thing.
Yes.
The rate increase, Chandra and I talked about it a little bit. I did suggest that it go through utilities committee. We were getting a lot of calls. Chandra told me that she was getting a lot of calls in the office, people that were requesting passes. So I think we've already answered the question that the pool, without council's approval, that we are not going to take a rate increase this year.
Okay.
So we'll need to remedy that, whether it be Facebook or whatever.
So because people hollered about taking a rate increase, we didn't take it?
We didn't take it through council.
We didn't take it through the appropriate channels to
Okay.
get the rate increase.
Last year during the budget season,
Yeah.
we didn't offer you a price increase. We've said a lot of things to CPI, and we didn't even do that with the pool. The pool revenues were an afterthought. If you'd like to do that at this point, you as a
You can set a
council
resolution now.
you can do that now, and it could be a compromise. I mean, or it could be what's being suggested, or it could be the old rate. The one thing that we need to do is clean it up and make sure that it's part of the budget process next year, not next year,
This year.
right now.
This year, yeah.
And we get that into resolution, and we can put that resolution into place now ahead of whatever we budget, if you choose to as a council. This is your recommendation to stay put. Because
Can you tell us can you tell us what the old rate was and
Yep.
what the new rate is?
So an individual rate was $75 previous, and was that for approximately 10 years, and a family pass was $135. And that was a limit of 4 people. If you added on to that, you had to add $20 per person. And again, still have to live in the same household. And when we say that, we totally understand that there's gonna be people that might just live with you for the summer. We get that. That's still your household. You are their guardian for the summer. I just can't put all of that into an ad, I guess. So, that was my biggest point yesterday. Call me if you have questions. See if there is something out there that fits your family's need. Right now, a family pass with unlimited amount of family members, because we do have some very large families in winter, is $200. That's what was
That's the
advertised yesterday.
proposed?
That's the proposed.
That was the proposed,
Yes.
and that's what they're hollering about?
Yep, so all you have right now is an individual pass and a family pass. That is it. You don't have any of these extra passes that are available. You don't have the over 65 pass, you don't have the babysitter pass, and you don't have the couples pass.
What are the new
What was
proposed
the
rates?
individual again?
You want
The
proposed?
new, yeah.
Proposed is $100 for individual, $200 for family,
Which is unlimited.
Unlimited.
150 for two individuals in the same household, which we called that a couples pass. For those that are 65 plus, a senior pass, $75, and a babysitter pass was $50. And that's an unlimited amount of babysitters. That includes all the grandparents or your high school person who's babysitting your kids.
And that was how much again?
50,
50?
50.
So
The daily pass was also, there was
this
a
year, we still have-
suggestion to change that.
What was
Have
the
it-
old daily pass?
Old daily pass, 12 and under was $5, and then 13 and above was $6. What we were proposing was the $5 across the board, no matter what the age. Because how do you know? I don't know if you've ever gone to Golden Corral and told your child you're 12 today, not 13, so that you can get the free food. It might happen at the swimming pool, too.
You think?
So $5 no matter what.
So, do we know, last year, we paid lifeguards this much money? Mm-hmm. And this year, obviously, we're paying them
Quite a
a
bit more.
significant amount more.
Yep.
Okay, what is that?
Last year, your starting wage for lifeguards was $11.
Okay?
This year, it's just under $13.
$12.98.
$12.98.
Okay.
So almost $3 difference in wages. Yep,
Mr. Mayor,
sorry,
Would
you're
that
right,
be a
almost $2
20%
difference in
increase?
wages, sorry. That doesn't include your OSI. They don't have any other benefits other than they have to pay
18%.
No, I
OSI.
understand that, but that's about a 20% increase?
Yes. Mr. Jensen.
I'm wondering if you want me to prepare a resolution that could go in front of ordinance committee tomorrow and in front of city council next Monday.
For full
Which could then
discussion.
be effective 20 days later,
Which would be before the pool opens.
right? That's about the only way we're gonna get that done before the pool opens. So if you want that, I can get that ready to go for tomorrow.
Yes,
But if our
please.
cost of operations went up somewhere around
Yes, please.
20%,
Actually, your cost of operations in the last 5 years has went down significantly due to chemical savings, propane savings. You can look back at 5 years and
so we're breaking even now?
the.
No, we're still ahead.
Yeah, don't get me started on that. But your operational cost of the pool has went down.
75,000.
Including the labor?
No, labor has gone up every
No,
year.
Overall
labor-
cost.
Labor's the only thing that's went up at the pool. Everything
Okay,
else has went
but
up.
the overall operation cost would include labor, is that not correct?
Yeah,
Your utilities.
Councilman Schramm, I can just ballpark in watching these for the last 5 years. I'm guessing Mark and Troy have reduced the operational cost about $75,000, $80,000 a year in the
Okay.
pool.
I would say it's safe to say that excluding lifeguards.
No, that's included in that.
That includes.
That's
the-
include-
Well, because
included.
lifeguards would be a cost of operation. That's what I would want to know.
Yeah, personal services is a part of that equation, and they have reduced it that much.
we've put in some equipment, we've made use of equipment that was there that we weren't using. Just to give you an example, it used to take probably 2 full tanks of propane just to get the pool up to heat. And we've started filling the pool 3 weeks early and letting the sun do the work.
Let the sun do the work.
And we control the temperature now more closely than ever before. So, chemical usage has a lot to do with that. When you get that pool so hot, you're going through.
You go through
I mean, you can go
chemicals,
Twice
yep.
as much chemical as you do when you keep that. So, we've just, paid more attention and used the equipment that we have at hand, and it's reduced the operational of the cost of the pool significantly.
So let me ask this question. Why the hell are we taking a rate increase if we're cutting our costs?
That's not a question for me.
My
Overall.
thought would be this. We have two councilmen sitting here who happen to both be on my committee tomorrow. And we'll have that in front of you tomorrow, so.
Yes, you do.
Between now and then, what I would like to have, if the two of you could consult with Chandra on what she had proposed and any differences you want to see made, so
Well, 'cause
that
that's
by the
what-
end of the day today, I can
What we're
finalize
getting-
that and put it in front of you tomorrow to approve through the ordinance committee
I
tomorrow.
agree
I can
because,
give you the full expenses for the last 5 years and the revenue specifically for the pool the last 5 years,
yeah,
so you can
because
see the difference.
if we're comfortable having a
Quality of
living,
life,
you
quality of
know,
life.
if we're comfortable with what it costs us to have that, then let's have that. But if we're not comfortable with that, then we need to consider a rate increase. But if having the pool for a quality of life issue in winter, a quality of living in winter, costs us $50,000, then so be it. That's like having and we don't have anything to do with it, but the racquetball court is a quality of life issue in winter. For some people, they think that's important. Having softball fields, they think, I got a fistful of it the other day about softball fields, now that we have girls' high school softball, okay? So those are things that we need to decide, what's it worth to the city of Winter to have a really nice swimming pool? And it might not be that we can have it pay for itself, which I don't think we ever
It
should
doesn't pay
think
for
that.
itself, not in
Okay?
any way, shape, or
But
form.
what's it worth to have it in? And if we're not running more expensive now than what we were a year ago, or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, then I have to ask that question, why are we considering a rate increase?
And I think what you need to go off of is, I think you need to look at I think you need to go back a couple years now. I think we can comfortably say that we've got the pool fine-tuned. So
Okay.
we know, we can tell you about what it's gonna cost to operate it, plus or minus what our expenses are for the chemical,
Yep,
propane, but go back and look at the last couple of years. That's gonna give you a really good idea what 2023 is gonna be, 2024 is gonna be. You could go off what we've done now, and you could be pretty comfortable with saying this is what it's gonna cost us to operate the pool in the next coming years.
yep. I agree with that. Let's set that tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah, and like I say, I'll draft this resolution, and my initial thought is I'll do it based upon the rates that she had advertised. But between now and then, I'd like to have the two of you consult, and so by tomorrow, we can pass a resolution to go to full council that sets these rates.
I agree. Yep. I will tell you, Troy, that when I had a pool years ago, I heated that son of a gun with black painted water tanks. And it would work the same if we used a solar panel system with water running through it. I kid you not, I had to actually shut the water off because it made the pool too warm. Never had to use any propane to heat that pool.
Wow.
So we used that the old pool, was painted black.
Yep. Yeah, I went out to the dump and got a bunch of water heaters, tore them all apart. I had 5 of them, the
Well,
primitive system.
and there'll become a time where we'll have to update equipment, and that's a really good possibility. But right now, we have a boiler system, and that's what we purchased with the pool, and so we're kind of married to it for a while until
Yeah,
that equipment starts to wear out,
sure.
or we can't afford to run it anymore.
I do agree with your opening comment, though. I think you said every year we have cost increased, and Troy just mentioned there will be equipment increases. I don't think these are static by any means. I think each year has to be looked at on a year-to-year basis, but that happens between the months of April, May, June, and July, or May, June, July, and August. And that's when we address it for the following year, and we're taking a look at this, and that does fall within your parameters and duties, so. We're cleaning up our process. It's something that, in the past, I think we may have viewed it as a policy or an operational, and I don't think it is. I think it's part of that budget process. And when we set a budget, we're setting it the year before, and we could advertise in January, upcoming seasonal passes are gonna be this much, and we know what it is, and we have a plan, it's refined. It starts with the resolution tomorrow.
Yeah.
With that, I have nothing more. I don't think you do. I've kept council way late, and I appreciate you guys staying. Mark, I appreciate you being here for the thing. It's been a good
May I
meeting.
please apologize to the committee for allowing us and for being a part of the improper use of some customers' names in earlier discussion.
Yeah.
I take that on my shoulders, and I apologize.
Oh, do we do that?
When we're talking about different landowners and businesses,
Yeah.
I think that's proprietary, and we
Our,
do
our,
need
our
to-
customers, that's not names I should have been using, so.
So with that,